Welcome to WEFM's 3 p.m. news. I am your presenter, Jessica Klein. First on the local scene. The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force Traffic Department is calling on operators of trucks transporting various types of materials to ensure that they are properly secured before traveling on the nation's roads. Police Constable 1040 Hunt, during a call to WEFM's Traffic Talk program, made this appeal and in his advice to these operators made mention of the law relevant to the matter and warned of the legal consequences. We hear more from PC 1040 Hunt.
According to Section 6, Subsection 1 of the Litter Act, it states, a person who transports in or on a motor vehicle or trailer along any motorway, road, street, alley, land mall, or thoroughfare, any substance or material which is likely to fall off or blow off of that motor vehicle or trailer, because while being so transported is either not sufficiently well secured or not securely covered, is guilty of an offense.
That was the Police Constable 1040 Hunt of the RSVGPF's Traffic Department. PC 1040 Hunt appealed to these operators to ensure that the materials that are being transported on their vehicles are sufficiently secured, because failure to do so will result in prosecution in accordance with the law. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, has said that employment in the country has significantly increased over the past 2 decades. During talks on NBC Radio on Tuesday, the Prime Minister stated that there are currently more people working in SVG than any other time in the country's history. He said that there are now over 40,000 active registered workers at the National Insurance Services NIS. We hear more from the Prime Minister.
The population between 2001 and now has increased marginally, but the number of persons registered as employed persons, that is to say workers and self-employed people, at the NIS has moved from about 30,000 in 2000 to over 42,000 now, almost 43,000. And bear in mind that the NIS tells us that the number of persons who are active registrants at the NIS is some 20% less than the actual number of people working. You have a lot of domestics not on the list. Self-employed people, farm laborers, people who work on buses, some who work in the construction industry, and so on.
That was the Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. Still on the local scene, the most prevalent issue that affects Vincentians during the hurricane season is flooding and landslides. In light of this, Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Michelle Forbes, is urging Vincentians to be prepared for instances of these events happening. Speaking on NBC's Talk Your Talk, Forbes shared some measures to prevent against landslides. We hear more from the NEMO director.
Flooding and landslides are the 2 most prevalent hazards for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We all know that, or we should. That's what happens every year. And there are things that you can do to protect yourself, especially with the landslides. We see persons, and this has to be done long before the hurricane season. We see people cutting down the banks or cutting into the banks at angles that they should not be cutting into. So, of course, when heavy rains come, it actually affects your house or your property above or below. and people cut into the bank to extend their homes, etc. And then the bank comes down and of course affect the home. So we have to look at how we are cutting into the banks. We have to look at the vegetation in around our home to ensure that we have enough roots in our trees and our plants that we have room to try to help and bind the soil. And if you know you're living in a hilly area or on top of a bank, you know that once you're constructing, at some point you have to have a retaining wall to protect your home. So we ask persons to look at those things.
Forbes also encouraged persons to leave early and not wait for a state of flooding to evacuate.
We have persons, you know, you're living in those areas. Once the rain starts, don't wait until the rains it reached a stage that the flooding starts. You know that most likely if in the past you have been affected by flooding, for example, you know that most likely you're going to be affected again. So don't wait until the last minute. Start making your preparations early. And we say that every year, as Johnny P has been saying. We say it every year. And sometimes we're wondering if we're getting through, but we have to continue to preach that, because it's a constant state of reminding persons that we have to have that culture of safety and preparing for emergencies in our psyche, because that's the era that we are living in, from the droughts to the heavy rainfall to the storms, whatever is going to happen as we go along.
That was the director of NEMO, Michelle Forbes. On to the regional scene. The president of St. Lucia's National Council on Public Transportation, NCOPT, Godfrey Ferdinand, has expressed concern over recent road accidents, including minibus crashes blamed on brake failure. The president said that all accidents, not just those involving minibus operators, cause concern, and he explained, "It's just very alarming when it's a bus because obviously there are more than one persons on a bus." He said, on any given day, if we are to look at the accident rate, there would be more private vehicles than minibuses, but then it becomes an issue because of the number of people we transport. Ferdinand disclosed that a meeting proposed by the police involving NCOPT, the Insurance Council of St. Lucia, the garages, the police force, and the Ministry of Transport was to address this issue. The NCOPT president told reporters, "We are also aware that accidents are things you cannot avoid. However, some of these incidents are not accidents. Some are based on the condition of the vehicles, some are driver error, and sometimes road conditions." Still on the regional scene, stakeholders in the blue economy and tourism sector of Barbados are being advised to invest more in researching sarcasm seaweed patterns. According to Barbados Today, senior lecturer at the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies at the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill, Janice Cumberbatch Diaz, stated that this would improve the framework used to deal with the troublesome algae. During her remarks at today's The Development of Ocean Policy, Promises and Pitfalls panel discussion at Copacabana Bay Street, Cumberbatch said there needed to be a stronger emphasis on forecasting sarcasm patterns on the island. She said this would assist tourism players and environmental officials in their cleanup exercises and repurposing initiatives. And on the international scene, aid agencies in Sudan have said that nearly 300 children have been safely rescued from an orphanage in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. Reports state that they had been staying in the Mygoma orphanage, where more than 70 children are reported to have died from hunger and illness since the conflict in Sudan broke out in mid-April. The International Committee of the Red Cross said that the 297 children aged between 1 month and 15 years have been taken to Wad Madani, about 125 miles from Khartoum. They are now at a transit center, and the UN's Children's Agency UNICEF says it is working with the relevant authorities in identifying foster families for them. A UNICEF representative, Mandeep O'Brien, said the safe movement of these incredibly vulnerable children to a place of safety offers a ray of sunlight in the midst of the ongoing conflict in Sudan. This has been WEFM's 3 p.m. news. I have been your presenter, Jessica Klein. Join us again at 5:30 p.m. for WEFM's evening news, and we thank you for listening.